we actually went up to an Israeli base, and they had a video of captured footage. It is an incredibly brutal video. You will see people just laying on the ground, not posing any threat, just being randomly shot. You will see a father and his children running into a building seeking safety, and you watch them throw a grenade in there, and the father jumps on it.
That was in the kibbutz.
In the kibbutz, and you will see the two children being escorted back into the house. And then later on, when the kibbutz security shows up, the wife finds her husband. You'll see pictures of women that have been shot, children that have been shot. It was brutal. Probably one of the most brutal scenes is you watch somebody decapitate. You watch somebody decapitate an Israeli soldier.
And they showed you this stuff? I mean, because I've seen some of the footage.
Some of the footage had been released out of social media, and a lot of it's been taken down.
And I saw some of it, not by choice, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted...
I mean, there was footage of women being put in the back of trucks and then driven through Gaza, and everyone was celebrating.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were just some really terrible things, and at the end, they told us how many people we had just watched lose their life, and it was 110 people.
Yeah.
And that was only 10% of everybody that died that day. It's pretty brutal, like sitting there for an hour and a half and watching that many people lose their life.
Yeah. And then listening to Hamas call back to their family members, bragging about how many Jews they've killed with their bare hands.
That guy was calling his mom.
Yeah.
Saying, "Mom, I just killed 10 Jews."
One of the questions that we asked was, why don't you put this out there? And it was rooted in, we have respected the wishes of the families. The families, for very obvious reasons, don't want this footage to go out. And so we have a limited way that we can show it to people.
And when they brought you in, didn't they have therapists on hand in case you needed one?
Yeah,
after watching the footage,
they told us there was a therapist available if anybody needed to talk to one after. Everybody that went as part of our group watched through the entire video. We had some. I mean, all of this obviously is horrific. But everyone, I was glad everybody sat through the whole thing. I believe people should see it. I understand why the families don't want them to. I understand why families don't want the most prolific image of their loved ones being brutalized and massacred. I understand that. I don't think people have a proper appreciation for what happened and the nature of what happened and the reasons for why it happened. I think all these college professors talking about this is just part of resistance. It's like, really shooting a small girl is just, and we're not talking about a situation where you fire a rocket at a military target, it overshoots it and lands in an neighborhood.
And it's accidental.
We're not talking about
collateral damage.
Unintended collateral damage, right? Collateral damage happens in war. It is practically unavoidable. We're talking about somebody who knowingly goes up and shoots a child. In the West, we are so convinced that nobody could possibly actually want to do these things unless they were just driven to it, or it was collateral damage, or and what it is it's arrogance. It's Western arrogance. It's treating people, treating terrorist organizations almost like children. Oh, you don't really believe that. As long as we give you as long as we give you your own state, or as long as we give you this, or as long as we give you aid, well, then you won't do these things. You're just driven to it. And it's like, no, they want to do this.
When you give them aid, they take the fuel that Israel gives them for their generators to pump water, then put it in their trucks to go do more terrorism.
I remember when Hamas took all of the pipes in Gaza that were supposed to be for like the water supply and gas lines and stuff like that, and they converted them into rockets.
Yeah, they turn them into rudimentary rockets.
And then they wonder why there's and again, problems with water access.
Just one more thing to understand, like 3,000 Hamas members crossed the border that day. And then civilians followed them.
That's the other thing that people don't properly understand. Because it's so close, everyone thinks that Hamas fighters did this. Gazan civilians then crossed the border and looted and proceeded to also engage in this activity. When they drove back with people in the trucks, it's not like Gazans were horrified by it. They were pouring out into the streets and celebrating and slapping bodies and kicking. So again, the two major revelations out of this, where again, when people tell you they want to murder you, start taking them seriously. I get this leftist claptrap of treating everybody like, oh, all they want is, no. They come from a different worldview. They believe different things. If you are a stated terrorist, if you believe that all Jews should be murdered, right, it may be really convenient for you in your safe little seat at the sociology department at Berkeley saying, oh, well, they don't really mean that. I guarantee you it's a very different world for people living on the business end of a rocket. And they're at a point where wherever you go, it's like, look, we take them seriously. They believe it. They want to do it. They hate us. That's it. If we said, all right, we'll give you, like, how many different two-state solutions have there been? 5? All of them more generous than the next. All of them reject it. Right? They've come to the conclusion, we could give up everything. We could say, all right, we're pulling up stakes. Israel no longer exists. Hamas would still be coming over to kill us. They hate us. That's it. It is a fundamental part of their worldview, and they're going to continue to do it. And so this idea of, well, why can't you just do, what more foreign aid? I mean, UN foreign aid funds a lot of the schools that are then being taught, they're teaching primary level children that one of their most noble tasks that they can do is die killing Jews. This is another thing that we don't seem to understand. It's like, nobody would really do this to their own women and children. They don't see it. They see it as a sacrifice. Like we had a whole Y minute where we talked about this. What Hamas is relying upon is they know they can't beat the IDF. Let me put it this way. Hamas went into the Israel that day knowing they can't beat the IDF. They went in that day knowing that the IDF would come after the hostages. They went in that day knowing that they were going to use their own civilians on top of legitimate military targets in an effort to increase civilian casualties, their civilian casualties. And yet they knew that Western media and academia would back their play and make a false moral equivalency argument. The question that you got to start asking yourself, if you're serious about this, how did they know they could trust left-wing academia and media to back their play? How did they know? Because that's exactly what took place. And yeah, you can chalk it up. Because
they always do.
You can chalk it up to funding. You can chalk it up to all of this. Sure. Yes, absolutely. But there is something fundamentally different this time. And I think one of the things Americans do need to wake up to, because I realize that there's a lot of people on the right too that are like, look, not our problem, Israel's problem. Okay. I'm not saying that the United States military should go in and fight this war. I'm not saying that. I'm not advocating for that. In the entire time that we were over there and everyone we talked to, none of them asked for that, actually. They're like, no, our war, we want to fight it. We could use some munitions. But that's the part where I think people need to wake up to the fact that, look, that ideology doesn't stop with Israel. And I'm not someone that claims that, oh, we've got to fight him over there or else we'll have to fight him here. I'm not someone that makes that argument every 5 seconds like Bush did and everybody else. But there is something inherently evil about the idea of we want to completely genocide an entire group of people based off of their ethnicity and their faith. And I don't think that stops, especially when I look at the history of certain organizations. That doesn't stop with Jews.
Somehow they have flipped the script to say that genociding the Palestinians is what's really going on. How do they flip when it's totally obvious that... Because
the left believes that if you deliberately misgender someone, you're genociding trans people.
That's true.
Like the left doesn't only make up new words like cis, right? They completely redefine words that we already have and used to understand, right? So they'll call Gaza's an open air prison. Okay, well, are you mad at Egypt? No. Why not? Well, because they're not Jews, right? Like Israel's an apartheid state. How is that possible when Arabs can vote, run for office, serve in the military? There's Arabs on the Supreme Court. There's Muslims on the Supreme Court of Israel. Any Jews on the Supreme Courts of Islamic countries? Right? Like they're genociding everything. If Israel wanted to genocide everyone in Gaza, they could do it. And yet the population of Palestinians in Gaza has increased exponentially. Here's what's interesting. The next time somebody tells you Israel's an apartheid state, ask them, what are the criteria that makes something an apartheid state? And you know what they will end up describing? Almost every single Arab state in the region. Not all of them, but almost every single Arab state in the region. And yet, no connection is made. When you can come up with an objective set of criteria that actually describe, right, everyone except the people that you're accusing of it, and you make no connection, that's intentional. That is intentional. So listen, do I believe that every Arab is a part of this? Absolutely not. I know for a fact they're not. Do I believe every Muslim agrees with this? Absolutely not. I know for a fact they don't. But should we start taking Hamas and Hezbollah seriously? Yes, they mean it. They intend to do it. And even if you don't believe, I believe that Israel has a right to exist. Even if you don't believe that, but you're not anti-Semitic or you don't bear any, direct ill will against Jewish people, understand that without the state of Israel, these groups don't stop trying to kill Jews. So again, I think you should take these organizations at their word. And I think you should also understand that they have a lot more popular support than the left would like you to believe. The other thing that you need to understand about this that I think is very, very interesting is that when you listen to the left in America talk about this, go to one of these protests and say, what river, what sea? They don't know because it's not important to them. Because for them, this is not about Israel or Palestine or understanding the nuances or complexities of a conflict that's been going on for over 2,000 years. It's not about any of that. It's about a left-wing ideology rooted in critical theory, which breaks down everybody based off of oppressor and oppressed. And they have come to the conclusion that this is the oppressors and these are the oppressed, and that's it. And that's all the justification they require.
This is why they're obsessed about the borders of Palestine. But if you care about the borders of France or Germany or the United Kingdom, you're a racist, you're a bigot. Yeah.
It's like it does need to be understood that there is a common thread among leftist organizations and leftist ideology, not liberal, leftist ideology, and what is going on over there. And if you don't make that connection, then you're deliberately not seeing it. You're deliberately not seeing it.